Huge welcome to everybody that has joined us this evening. My name is Ingrid Cole and I am the Director of People and Culture here at Everyday Independence. I've been at Everyday Independence for about 12 years now, and I am super passionate about building a workforce that is fit for the NDIS and fit for Australia in delivering the NDIS to Australian communities. And tonight's event is one that we are particularly passionate about. It is everyday clinical careers. There's a real focus on new graduates tonight at this event, and it is really about supporting you to unlock your clinical passion and to really discover your purpose. And if you don't know what that is perfectly okay. I did not know what that was at this point in time either. In fact, I think that's a superpower, because it means that you're going to be able to go out there and try lots of different things and find what that clinical passion is, what that purpose is, because we know if people are doing what they love, they drive very strong outcomes for the people that we support. So welcome, and I hope over the next hour or so you learn how at Everyday Independence we really want to change the game, and we really want to change the way that people in Australia think about and view disability. So Priyanka is with me this evening. She's driving the slides for me. So Pri, thank you very, very much. I'm first going to start with the next slide, which will be acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and pay my respects to our elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders as the first people of Australia. And I think this is, always an important thing to acknowledge, but at the moment too, we're seeing lots of coverage on The Voice. So it is certainly something that we are all talking about and speaking about at Everyday Independence. And then the other thing that we always start every meeting with at Everyday Independence is our why. This is what unites everybody that works at Everyday Independence. We strive every day to lead and support individuals, their families, communities, and our nation to become global leaders for inclusion. So tonight you're going to hear from me for about the first 20 minutes, and then you're going to hear from our panel, and I think you're going to see wonderful examples of our why. So how do we deliver our why? How do we deliver our culture at Everyday Independence? We do that by delivering our values. And our values are here on the screen for you to see tonight. And our values are very much aspirational, but also lived and breathed every day at Everyday Independence. And they really should be able to demonstrate to you our culture and our social model. So our values are built on social model principles, and they really are at the centre of everything that we do. Okay, so whether you are an employee or whether you are a participant, so the people that use our services, the values apply to you. And that's how we get that lovely mix of culture going through our organisation for all stakeholders. So we want to change the game. We want to inspire with belief. So for you as a graduate or as a person that is joining our organisation, we really want to support you to truly believe of what is possible for you in your career. But exactly the same way that you will work with participants and families that are living with disability to really understand what their potential is and what is really possible for them in their life. So I won't go through each value, but as you can see, the values are at the heart of everything that we do for every stakeholder. And I think probably one of the most important values, and it's there at the centre, I say that and then I think all five are really important, but is champion the person. So we are a person-centred, person-first organisation. That is our employees. That is also the people that we support. So if you were to join Everyday Independence, it is about you having choice and control over your future. And once you've got choice and control over your future, that's where you can go out and explore and really ignite that clinical passion, which is what it is that you want to achieve. So I could talk about the values all night. That's what tonight's not all about, but we will definitely come back to them. So on the next slide is I talk about in the previous slide about changing the game, we are trying to do this nationally. So Everyday Independence is now approximately 900 employees. We have 40 hubs across 6 states, and we're really expanding our reach because, as you can see with our why, we really want to make inclusion possible for all Australians. So one of the things that are at the heart of this and is at the heart of what we do is helping people access services sooner and provide services that offer value for money. And we're doing that with habit coaches as well. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that tonight. But how do we actually make an impact? Let's talk about this. So Pri, we'll go to the next slide, but this really perhaps talks to a lot of what we're talking about tonight. We work in the everyday way. And before I tell you about the everyday way, I'm going to give you an example. So that impact that we're trying to make nationally, those values that we've spoken about, and the everyday way, let me tell you about Charlie. I worked with Charlie a number of years ago now, and Charlie came to me as a participant of the NDIS, and he was 18 years of age. And he came to me, my background is physiotherapy, with a referral to get a mini tramp. And as I was assessing him for this mini tramp, I could see that he was using it to self-regulate more than what he was using it for exercise, which was the referral. And I asked his mother, so Charlie attended the appointment, and I asked his mother, and Charlie had also come with his dog, I should mention, what's Charlie going to do when he finishes school next year? And Mum said to me, oh, look, I'm really not sure. We're in a bit of a conundrum, but I think I'm going to give up work and look after Charlie because we've tried a few different programs and Charlie hates the programs and day programs. So I think I'll just give up work and look after him. And I said to her, oh, isn't Charlie going to work or do some further education? And Mum looked at me and she was really very cross and angry with me. And she said, don't you understand? Charlie has autism. And I said, oh, yes, I understand that Charlie has autism, but, look at how much potential he's got. There was some things we'd already been talking about that he could do. And Mum was really upset and was going to make a complaint because she really felt I didn't understand what was going on for Charlie. Now, these were the early days of the NDIS. Now, please understand that Charlie's mum had lived with Charlie for 18 years and there didn't used to be the reasonable and necessary supports through the NDIS to offer people like Charlie with opportunities following school, except for some institutionalised settings. Anyway, we continued to talk and we developed rapport and relationship, and we got an OT involved and a behaviour support practitioner involved and a speech pathologist. And we really established that Charlie had a real love of animals. Now, I won't tell you the full story, but let's fast forward. Charlie started working in a veterinary clinic. The veterinary clinic was owned by his uncle, so it was really awesome that they had some naturally occurring supports in the community already for Charlie. And Charlie now works 26 hours a week in a veterinary clinic and has done so for 4 years. What is the outcome of that? The outcome of that is Charlie is living a life with purpose. Charlie has friends, so much so that Mum was actually annoyed a couple of Christmases ago, tongue-in-cheek annoyed, I should say, because Charlie wanted to spend Christmas Day with his friends. Charlie didn't have any friends previous to this. And Mum had continued to stay in full-time employment, and Charlie was in employment as well. So they were still able to stay in their home. They were able to afford cost of living. They were able to go on holidays. Mum's and Charlie's health outcomes were better because they were actively engaged in purposeful activities every day. So great human outcome. But the other benefit of the NDIS is an economic outcome. So we know if the NDIS is successful, that it will actually add money to the Australian economy. So with Charlie working and not on a disability pension support, and with Mum working and not on a carer's pension, what do you think was the saving or should be the saving to the cost of Charlie and his mother to the Commonwealth over the lifetime of Charlie and his mother? Okay. The cost is, believe it or not, we calculated it out, somewhere between $4 and $8 million for one family savings to the Commonwealth. So they've got a great human outcome, a great economic outcome, because Mum stayed in the workforce for another 25 years. Charlie's potentially going to be in the workforce for 40 years, and they are doing all the things that they want to do in life. So this is why the NDIS is so powerful, but we had to know, well, how do we manage to have more and more Charlies with people that we support? So how do we do that? We have operationalized, we've curated research from across the globe, and we do that by doing the everyday way. And so that is what you would learn if you worked at Everyday Independence. We train that from scratch, and it will make you a future fit practitioner. We know that this is what the NDIA wants. So you would work in interdisciplinary teams. So you would look at the person from all angles, and you would always be working in a team. You will work with habit coaches, which are people that then practice what you learn in what the person learns in therapy and build those skills and the routines into their everyday life. You will be doing social model practice, and that is where everybody shares the responsibility for the person and the attitudes, the physical environment in which they find themselves in. And the wonderful thing about this for graduates is that the social model is deeply embedded in that you are not the expert, but rather the person is the expert of their own life. And the graduates tell me that is so powerful because it relieves them of the pressure to have to solve everything, but rather they are a facilitator. And then how do we really operationalize that? We have a lead tool. So you're going to be able to also then measure your therapeutic impact. So if you come to Everyday Independence, you will learn the everyday way. You will learn the most contemporary, evidence-based, up-to-date disability support service. And we are so proud of that because we know that is the future. And we already see other areas starting to dabble in this. And we think this is really our value proposition for our graduate program. Okay. So how do we meet the goals of the NDIS? The Everyday Way aligns to the NDIS goals. It's about enabling participants. It's about enabling participants to buy well. It's about enabling participants to have choice and control. So we were able to inspire with belief, champion the person, and offer Charlie a future that was far greater than what was perhaps being imagined for him. And we're going to be able to find smarter, more impactful ways for people to be able to work together and to work with each other. Next slide, please, Pri. So how do we do this? It's all very well for me to say we create this everyday way, we operationalize the model, but we need to do that by having fabulous clinicians and really great leaders. And Everyday Independence is really, sorry, we'll just go back one, Pri. Everyday Independence is really leading the sector with the depth and the quality of our clinicians and our leaders. So to give you an example, at the OT conference, we had over 8 practitioners that were presenting at one of the conferences and presenting 5 abstracts. So not only do we deliver the everyday way, but we are deeply embedded in evidence-based practice, research, and really progressing the organisation forward. So we are looking for candidates that really want to lead the charge for positive change and really want to disrupt and challenge the status quo when it comes to disability and to really try and drive our profession forward. For people like Charlie, or for our nation, we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to really change the way disability supports are delivered, and the entire world is watching how Australia does this. So it's a really, really exciting time to be an allied health professional in this sector. So I've probably spoken to this already, but why work in disability? The research tells us that employees want 3 things. They want cause. We have that in buckets. We have lots of families like Charlie and lots of communities that we can support. So we've got cause in buckets. They want to work in community. And I'll tell you more about hub life as we progress. But again, we've already spoken about interdisciplinary teams. We are able to create a community of allied health professionals that work together towards a shared purpose and goal. And then the other thing that the evidence shows us, and certainly our experience is that people want career. So we're able to offer our graduates a really diverse graduate experience, a really great foundational experience. And then as you'll see later in the presentation, we'll be able to then offer a number of different career pathways for people. And they are not linear, or they're not a one-way ticket. We have people that jump between the clinical pathways. Some people want to be a specialist generalist, other people want to be a specialist or an SME in a particular area. And we use a person-centered approach to support you to be able to do that. But I think, sorry, Pri, we'll just stay back. I think at the very heart of why I work in disability, it really is a career that is grounded in purpose. And then I say to people, but why work at Everyday Independence? It's because we have curated and developed over the last 12 years social model therapy. So you will be a future fit practitioner if you do your training and your new graduate year here. We know that Everyday Independence practitioners are highly sought after across the whole sector because they have been trained in contemporary practice that has real impact and outcomes. So we and I feel incredibly proud of that. So what does the first 12 months look like? The first 12 months is all about skills and confidence. And we often say, or I often say to a graduate, you've got your L plates, but this is the time to be on your red Ps. This is the time to try lots of different things, go out there and make mistakes. We know you will make mistakes. We want you to make mistakes, but you will be in such a supported environment that when you make those mistakes, there'll be an opportunity to reflect and an opportunity to improve. So we can help you take measured mistakes that aren't catastrophic if they don't work out. And what I love about this is that we hope that you can role model this to participants. People with a disability also need to build confidence and skills. They need to get out there, they need to have a go, they need to take risks. And that is what working in the disability sector is all about. It is actually about trying, falling down, trying again, having success, trying, and, you know, the same opportunities that I think that you and we have all had in life that, you know, we don't always succeed, but if we can stand up, reflect and move on and do that in a very supported and capable way, that is what your first 12 months is going to look like. So early days, lots and lots of hand holding, out and about with your mentor, shadowing, observations, etc. And then it's very much new graduate led in terms of the level of autonomy that you want, because we know everybody learns in a different way, but there's a very structured program that you will work through. So we call it Everyday Flying Start, and it really is to try and give you the best start. So as I mentioned before, we understand that you're still learning and need support. We almost like to see this like an intern year. So for those that have done a 4-year degree, it's your 5th year, or those that have done the 2 years masters, it's your 3rd year, and you'll make mistakes and that's okay. We say that failure isn't picking up a bat, taking a swing and missing. Failure is actually just not picking up the bat in the first place. And that's really at the heart of our culture. And we talk a lot about dignity of risk and taking a positive approach to risk. But what do you expect? It's a 12-month structured program. It will support you to transition from uni to practice. Different unis have a different level of social model appreciation at the moment. So we really do start from scratch and take you through the whole continuum. We want you to learn about what it means to drive real change, what it means to be a great team player in a bigger team, and for you to be able to curate and access the supports that work best for you. So we have loads of in-house learning, which I'll tell you a little bit more. We also have a professional development budget that you can access from day one. And we want you to be supported every step of the way. But the same way we support an individual with a disability, we want just enough support, because that's the learning zone. So not too much support and not too little support. So you'll see all of these principles around building confidence and skills and the right amount of support are the same for the people that you work with as they will be for you. Okay. This is probably my favourite slide in the whole of the presentation. I use this slide a lot when I'm speaking to people about joining Everyday Independence. So at Everyday Independence, as I've mentioned, we use a person-centered approach to supporting all of our team members, not just graduates, but all of our team members. But then according to where you're at in your career, you curate from this dial. So we have a lot of other supports. Just here, we've really put down the main clinical supports. But I often say to the graduates, that sort of lower bottom third, so around that sort of, I suppose, 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, discipline-specific mentor, lots of shadowing and observation, and graduate mentoring supervision in groups is really going to be at the very core of your early new graduate experience. But other people, or as you progress, there's lots of other supports that you can tap into. So if we look at the top of the dial, you have a lot of admin support. We want you doing allied health professional things. We don't want you getting bogged down in admin, so you have lots of admin support. We have Hub Life, which we'll talk about, which is a really important protective factor to well-being and for you feeling like you belong. We've mentioned that you work in interdisciplinary teams, so it's great. Other people know the participants that you're working with. And we have work-life balance training. And work-life balance training is such an important component to your new graduate year, because if we can get this right from the outset and you develop the habits and the routines to be a productive and balanced practitioner, that is going to give you great longevity in your career and great learning capacity as well. Then some of the other things that are unique to Everyday Independence that you will hopefully learn a little bit more about tonight is everyday therapy mentoring. So this is a digital mentor where if you need support from a senior clinician, let's say you're an occupational therapist and you want to, let's say your mentor's not available at that particular time of day, you can drop into a digital room and sitting there will be a experienced OT that you can go and ask your questions to. So for example, last week, one of the mentors said to one of the graduates, I'm actually not really sure about that question. It was an AT, an assistive technology question. How about you go along to everyday therapy mentoring at 11 o'clock? They went to everyday therapy mentoring and the senior OT was able to answer their question. And actually at that session were a couple of other new graduates that were just listening in and learning along the way. So it's a really, really powerful way to access the best in the business across our nation. We also have communities of practice. So again, discipline-specific group of practitioners across the nation get together and discuss the latest evidence. For example, I think the speech pathologists were doing mealtime management session number 3 last week. So you're able to continue that professional development in your areas of interest. And then career coaching. We have career coaching to support you to really access what it is that you want to achieve. How are you going to unlock that clinical passion, and what is your grow plan? So that's your learning and development plan to get you to where you want to be. So huge amount of supports. Your career coach, your team leader, your mentor will help you work out what that looks like for you to deliver just the right amount of supports. Let's go to the next slide, please. So this is how we view progression with the participant. It's the same that we view progression with our team members. We first want you to be able to believe in yourself, deeply rooted in our value of inspire with belief, then expand your boundaries. So we're going to support you to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, to really start to build your confidence, and then enabling you to make your breakthrough. So we have a whole structure to support you to move through this continuum in your new graduate year. Let's keep going, Pri. What happens when you finish the program? We have a number of different career clinical pathways for speech pathologists, OTs, physiotherapists, and other people in our other programs, which is behaviour support and early years. And we will work with you to decide what program it is that you might like to do the training in, and then we can match your caseload accordingly. So this is just a lot of information here, but we'll be able to, and I think, Pri, if we go to the next slide, that probably gives even more detail. Just know that there are long-term career growth and ongoing professional development opportunities at Everyday Independence. And we don't just say we do it, we have a really detailed infrastructure to support you to be able to do that. So people will often say, I know where I want to go, but I just need help in knowing how to get there. And this infrastructure will enable you to do that. So today's session is all about unlocking your clinical passion, and you're going to hear from some really incredible panel members to be able to do that. But this is about giving you in your new graduate year a varied caseload to give you a really broad clinical exposure. And you'll have those moments where you're like, I love doing that. And then you'll have other moments where, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. And then that's a constant discussion with your mentor and your team leader to curate a caseload that suits you. But it is about identifying your strengths and your clinical interests in that first year. And as I mentioned before, we then create a grow plan, which is your learning and development plan with our in-house career coach. I think the other really great thing about unlocking your clinical passion is that the interdisciplinary team creates a really great opportunity for you to learn lots of different things. So, for example, it's not always just from the same discipline that you will learn, but you will start to pull things from lots of different areas and disciplines in our organisations. And as we said, you'll then be able to decide to what clinical pathway do you want to take, and what is it that you actually love, because work doesn't really feel like work when you're doing what you love, and it's never wasted on me that we actually get paid to do this work and to make a living, but to be able to contribute to lives and live this purpose every day. So that's, if we can get you to feel like that, I think that's a really, really successful year for a new graduate year. Sometimes it's just as important to work out what you don't like just as much as what you do like as well, because many of us can get excited about a lot of things when it comes to working in this area. So I would love to introduce our panel to you now. You've heard more than enough from me, but tonight I'm going to introduce to you Jo Collins, who is an occupational therapist and team leader and currently based in Ballarat. So I'm going to come back to Jo in a minute. And then we're going to hear from Charlotte, who is based in our Newcastle hub, and Charlotte is a speech pathologist and therapy mentor. I can answer any questions about physiotherapy. I've been a physiotherapist for nearly 25 years, believe it or not, and still deeply passionate about what we do. So I'm here in physiotherapy capacity tonight as well. So Jo, we're going to start with you. I do have an introduction here, but and I wrote down a fabulous OT, and that is exactly what you are. And you have extended that now to be a team leader at Everyday Independence. And I think you joined us in 2021 after graduating at Deakin Uni in Geelong. And I think what's so fabulous is that you've worked in a number of different hubs, I think Barwon, Melton, and now you're in Ballarat. So can we start this evening by a huge welcome, but also tell me what appealed to you about working at Everyday Independence, and why did you choose EI for your graduate year?
Thanks so much, Ingrid. I love that warm welcome. So I had quite an interrupted end of uni experience. So coming out of that COVID time, and I just felt really nervous and unprepared for that transition into being a professional. And so I actually went to a few events very similar to these and went to a number of them. And I was very fortunate that being at Deakin in Victoria, there was a EI hub quite nearby, and we had a lot of fellow peers and students who had done placements with Everyday Independence, and getting the feedback that there was an abundance of support was the main thing that I got out of it. And that was really important to myself to hear, that there was a support being so nervous coming out of that final year of university. And then what really solidified that I'd made that right decision as well is that I remember on my first day being at that new grad, I arrived, I was commuting to Barwon at the time. I arrived 40 minutes early, just being that nervous individual.
Of course you did.
Yeah, I did. I'm better now. It's only usually 10 minutes early now. And then I actually sat down. I was sitting in the sort of tea room area, and one of our admin at the time, Sarah, sat down with me and got to know me as Jo, not as the new grad. And it really helped make me feel as though I was a person valued in the hub and in the company as well. So it was just really great to feel that as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think we caught up before this session tonight and you told me that and I got goosebumps because as the Director of People and Culture, that's exactly what we want people to experience on their first day, is that champion the person and inspire with belief. And yes, I know Sarah very well as well, and I have no doubt that that would have been a wonderful introduction. Yeah. Okay. So let's continue to talk about the transition from university to practice. What did mentoring and supervision look like for you? And what impact did that have on that transition?
Yeah, so there was a lot. So I started with on the ground observation of not only OTs but of other disciplines as well, to get a real sense of how do we all work together to support a participant. That also included my mentor going out and showing me the ropes, observing what I was doing to provide me with feedback as well. Then we had weekly mentoring, one-on-one sessions, group mentoring with peers as well, weekly team leader meetings and mentoring. I had everyday therapy mentoring drop-in, as you mentioned earlier as well. New graduate learnings, and also on the ground incidental support from team members and experienced clinicians as well. So that was the start of my journey in building my confidence up and knowing that it was okay to make mistakes and it was okay to ask those questions. Then I really felt that there was no silly question to ask, and everyone was so genuinely invested in my journey as well, which is great.
Yeah, fantastic. Look, I think the only silly questions are the questions that don't get asked. I think, you know, we've all certainly been there before. And I think for tonight's listeners, if you take anything away from what Jo just said, that first year is about building your whole career, to be honest, is about building confidence and skills. But that first year is about building confidence and skills. And we all know, like we've all been there, that it's actually okay to make mistakes. And we're not having a go if we don't make mistakes, if we're too cautious. So we'll help you make measured mistakes. And so, Jo, we do understand, don't we, how important mentoring and supervision and coaching is to our graduates, but not only in those early days as they build those skills, but we have an expectation at Everyday Independence that regardless of where you are in your career, that you have those mentoring and supervision opportunities, even our experienced practitioners. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the structure at the moment because mentors have mentors. Myself as a team leader now has a mentor, so it's great that it's not just at one level, it's everyone is supported. But there's really two different areas of mentoring that individuals get. So it's we have the team leader support that really works with the team member and practitioner on the operational side and well-being, so making sure that their day-to-day is running smoothly. Any areas where they need someone to have a bit of a debrief with, they're your go-to person. Then we also have your therapy mentor, that discipline specific, to really unlock your clinical support, to refine your skills as well as a practitioner. So having someone from both directions is that wraparound support that is fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think you've been a really great example of that, because you've tried lots of different things as well. And certainly your reputation of team leader is very, very strong at Everyday Independence. I regularly hear how supported everybody feels by you. But can you take yourself back to that 2021 when you started to join us? Can you tell us about how your role has evolved over time, from day one when you met with Sarah and you just rabbit in the headlights, you know, right through to now that you're actually supporting others?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's felt like it's gone really quick. So I've been with EI now for about 2.5 years. But as I was saying before, I Started in Barwon, so I was commuting up from Ballarat, so about an hour and a bit drive. Stayed there for about 2 weeks, and then there was actually a need for OT support in Melton, and so I was like, yep, I'm happy to go and give it a go. But that was a very similar drive as well, and I was really supported to make that decision by my team leader at the time, and there's a really smooth transition between hubs as well, and I was able to even continue to support some of the participants I'd already met as well through the Barwon team as well, and even continue to support to this day as well. Then about 8 months in, started slowly transitioning into the Ballarat hub as that became more established as a full team. So that was all within that 1 year within the hubs, and throughout it, I did the graduate program within that 12 months, and got through that really well. Felt really supported, and then about that's when that 12 months really started to refine my clinical interests and areas, and I dabbled a little bit in your assisted technology, a little bit in home mods, and then in the psychosocial disability space. And yeah, a year and a half in, I was really encouraged by my team leader and other clinicians around me in the Ballarat team at the time there were 2 opportunities, that team leader role or therapy mentor role. I actually applied for both because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And it was great to have that encouragement, because to feel people have that belief in me as well was fantastic. I ultimately was successful in that team leader position, and have it's almost been a year now that I've been a team leader in Ballarat, and supporting a team of almost 15 therapists as well, which, going from 4 therapists when I first became a team leader to 15, we've had that incredible growth in that year as well. Yeah. So that's my journey. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a testament to your leadership to grow and develop a team. I think the numbers certainly speak for themselves, and it's so exciting that we're able to impact the Ballarat community like that now. The feedback has been amazing. But you touched on it before, so you've got a real passion for psychosocial disability and diagnosis. How did you discover that was an area of clinical interest for you, and how have you been able to pursue that passion?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started, I had the assumption that I wanted to work with in a pediatric-based, pure pediatric and children and family, based on my past placement experiences. That was all I had experienced, and it was very familiar, and I'm a creature of comfort. But I was able to be supported by my team leader at the time, therapy mentors, to actually have that growth mindset of working with participants across the lifespan. And I'm so grateful that I was encouraged to do that at the time, because I had the opportunities to work with various participants, and not only the opportunity, but I had the privilege to work with across that lifespan as well, which was fantastic. And I found that psychosocial caseload I connected with quite well, and I found that I had the most impact and the most passion, and I was just had that curious mind for how the mind worked. And even recently, there's a participant that I've been supporting for the past 12 months now. So we'll call them Rosie. So Rosie has a diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder, so formerly known as multiple personality disorder, with a lot of other comorbid mental health conditions, and a really significant trauma background. I worked with Rosie to develop that trust and relationship first, given that trauma background, and end of last year, we did a bit of a pivot in therapy where we went through the lead tool, went through all the daily living activities that were relevant to Rosie. And one of them was about personal hygiene. And at the time, end of last year, Rosie was not comfortable to even consider working on personal hygiene. It was something that was really brought up a lot of trauma. However, sort of if we fast forward 4 months into it, Rosie was like, I actually want to give this a go and give this a try. And so we worked together to pivot our therapy and looked at what can we do to make the environment safe, will feel safe for Rosie. So we looked at, before we even looked at showering or anything within the bathroom, we actually brought it back into the lounge room of how can we look at bringing just like your sponge washers, making sensory accommodations. And then it was really nice. A couple of weeks ago, I did a therapy plan of thinking, all right, let's do graded, slow and steady. We'll take 6 months to have a wash every week, which Rosie was only washing once to every 6 to 3 months. But then phone call the other week, Rosie's like, oh yeah, I'm having a bath every day now. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it was fantastic. It was great to have that impact where we had that conversation, and that while it might seem like a small achievement for some, for Rosie, this actually impacts that longer term vision as a stepping stone to going out into the community, to being able to join community groups and to participate in the local community as well. So there's so many follow-on impacts there as well for Rosie. So that's why I love that psychosocial, and that's why it's been such a great opportunity to be able to really narrow down my focus of what I love to do.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think, our graduates, one of the things they'll continually be asked in mentoring, isn't it, is what does that then make possible for the person? So, what does it make possible for Rosie if she can bath? And you've already talked about it. Well, she can go out into the community with confidence, or she can, make friends, or she'll be able to do X, Y, and Z. So these little wins all make really quite big and significant gains to a person's life trajectory, which is so exciting. And for those people that were wondering about psychosocial disability, I think that Jo touched on it, but that's really, mental health area of practice. But in a social model or in NDIS, we say psychosocial disability because, we're really trying to move away from that medical model or it being just a health-related domain, because it is so much more than that. And that's how we can support people. So, Jo, thank you. I could talk about people like Rosie all day, but I've got one more question for you, which is, what advice would you give to a soon-to-be graduate researching the best place to launch their allied health career?
Absolutely. I think we kind of touched on this before when you were presenting, Ingrid, but my advice would be, don't be afraid to have a go at the opportunities that come to you. So while I think it's come across quite evidently, I was really nervous commencing my career as an OT. But if I hadn't have taken the opportunity that EI had presented for me, then I wouldn't be the person I am today, but also the clinician I am today. So taking, and even the opportunities along the way in my journey at EI, I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't taken those opportunities. So it's been great.
Yeah, fantastic. So take-home message is, have a go, because that's all we expect of you, and we'll support you along the way to have a go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jo, thank you so much. Please stay around because we're going to have some time for questions at the end, but we're going to move across to Charlotte just now. Charlotte's joining us today from Newcastle, and Charlotte is one of our incredible speech pathologists, and Charlotte is a therapy mentor, so has taken the other pathway to Jo that Jo mentioned that she also considered going down as well. And Charlotte joined us in 2020, so that's a year that's forever marked on all of our minds. And I know, Charlotte, that you are absolutely having an impact not only on the speech pathologists at your hub, but really everybody as you work in that interdisciplinary team and really build the capacity of everybody to understand the true power of communication and what speech pathologists can offer. But let's take you back to 2020. I know none of us really want to think about that time now, but tell us about your transition from university to practice, and why did you choose Everyday Independence?
Thanks, Ingrid. 2020 was an absolute schmozzle, and I think just jumping in there, I hadn't had so much of a conventional start to my new grad career. I actually finished my degree at the end of 2018. Had a little bit of a crisis and panicked and thought, oh my goodness, I can't work in a clinic. That's just not for me. I can't do this for however many years. And thought, what am I going to do? Had some time working, had some time traveling. And then the people around me said, because I thought maybe I'll go back to uni, maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. They said, put a time frame on it, try it out. And I was one of my cousins who worked at Everyday Independence was telling me at a family dinner about her job and what her day looked like, and telling me about the social model, because that was something that was very new to me. It had only briefly been touched on at uni, and hearing about what her day looked like, what her caseload was, what the huge impact she was having on her participants, straight away I thought, this is it. This is where I need to be, and haven't looked back since. So it wasn't a conventional start, but jumping in the middle of lockdowns, and like you said before, Ingrid and Joe, giving it a go.
It's a common theme, isn't it? Just give it a go.
Yeah, and I thought it was very much a blank page. I thought, I'm coming into it, I'll give it a go. If it's not for me, not a worry, I'll find something else. But it is for me. I have not looked back, and I think the positive impact that the social model has is just amazing. And the things that we take for granted, I feel very privileged to be able to support people every day, and to see that the little things are actually the really big things.
Absolutely, Charlotte. I couldn't agree more. So tell me about those early days. What was it like learning about working in a social model? Because you're correct. You have a limited understanding when you join Everyday Independence, because it's not well taught at the moment. And if it is taught, it's just with a few buzzwords, and how do you actually put it into practice? So yeah, what did those early days look like?
Absolutely. So jumping in, I had a fantastic mentor who I was with from day one, and very much she was there as my support, whatever I needed, whatever like tools or discussion I needed to kind of shape my day and shape my time at EI. There was a lot of shadowing speech pathologists, seeing what community speech looked like in the social model, seeing what my co-workers got to do every day, observing OTs, observing physios. But since then, our team has expanded. It's huge, with positive behaviour support practitioners, with key workers. We're very lucky, and I consider myself very lucky to be able to learn off so many people. But I think I still remember my first day jumping in and out of appointments with my wonderful mentor, and just seeing she'd take off her paediatric hat, she'd put on her adult dysphagia hat, she'd put on her assistive technology communication device hat. And I thought, this is the caseload that's going to challenge me, that's going to, like, I want to learn every day. And I think when I'd had my interview, the discussion was, and the role was sold as a fifth year of learning. It's almost like that extension of uni. And I really think it's more than that fifth year of learning. Like, I'm learning every day from the people I mentor, from the people I shadow, from my participants. I just think that was what sold me, and being able to learn every day from the people around me, from the people within EI, and just learning every day a little bit more about what's possible. And from there, like, working across the lifespan, and then being able to like forge my path and work out where I wanted to be, without being forced into an area and not being happy with it. So it has been very open and very much led by my interest.
You're not wrong there, in the sense that we always forget new grad year, especially some of our greatest teachers are our participants. And the fact that we get to see them over a longer period of time and develop that rapport and that continuity of care, I think of some of my most powerful learning experiences absolutely do come from participants. So I love that flattened hierarchy, the way that we all learn together and build confidence and skills together. Thank you. Thank you for reminding us of that. So I'm going to jump to question 3 that I've got down here, which is about how did you discover, or what did you discover in that first year about your clinical interests, and what were you naturally drawn to, and how has that evolved?
So I think when I came in, had my interview, and there was discussion about what I wanted my caseload to look like, and I was very upfront at the beginning and said, look, I'm happy to try anything out. And then as I continued learning about the pediatric space, about working with adolescents in those like pivotal times in like building independence, working with adults, I think as I went on, I was able to kind of work out that working with adults was something that sparked joy for me. So there was always that check-in with my team leader about whether I had thought about different opportunities, about whether this had interested me, about how I could kind of better myself as a therapist and continue to follow that area of passion. And I, like Jo, met with our fabulous career coach, Sally Smith. And when she said to me, what do you want to do? And I just said, I just want to be a really, really good therapist. And then it was working out what I needed to do to get there. So being able to access professional development in the areas I wanted. So working with, I guess now my caseload has moved to working with adolescents who are looking at job hunting, moving out of home, employment, all of those like that really pivotal time in their lives, and also working with adults with progressive neurological disorders, looking at mealtime management, dysphagia management, eating and drinking with informed decision making, and complex communication devices like eye gaze. So I've been supported very early on to access assistive technology, learning, and every day there's just more opportunities to move down the path that I want to. And I think, for example, I always have in the back of my head, like very early on, being told that in this role, we have the power and like we can help to change the trajectory of people's lives. And I think there's one young gentleman who, again, sparks joy in the amazing things that he has done in the time that I've been working with him. His name's Jack, and I just think that the input in therapy has had such an impact for him. He lives with his family. Mum's a single mum. He has 2 siblings with disabilities as well, and Jack lives with an intellectual disability, dyslexia, and anxiety. And the family was in crisis. Jack hadn't been attending school. For Jack, it's reading and writing tasks are very difficult, so he was very withdrawn at school, very withdrawn from any tasks that were quite challenging. But we also worked out that the family had to move into emergency housing, and he hadn't been to school in about 3 weeks because he didn't know how to get to school from the new emergency housing that they were living in. Mum can't drive. Mum also didn't have the time or flexibility to be able to get him to school. And it's just been amazing because the intervention and the therapy for Jack has looked like transport training, using the accessibility functions on his phone to be able to search for things, to be able to search bus routes, to be able to read his text messages independently for the first time ever, and not having to go to his mum and ask her to read it out for him. It's just been amazing seeing this age-appropriate independence for Jack. And every time I see him checking in and him telling me he caught the bus to see friends, he caught the bus to do this, to do that, to hand out resumes. And I just think that this intervention has changed the trajectory of his life and has opened up so many opportunities.
It has, hasn't it?
Makes
It's
my heart
again,
sing.
what does this, yeah, absolutely. What does this make possible for you, Jack? And on any given day, you're right. Yeah, our heart sings. Charlotte, thank you so much. And I can just absolutely feel your passion. And so I'm going to just bring the last two things that we wanted to share with people tonight about your career here at Everyday Independence, because I'm just noticing the time. You've done a couple of really cool things. So you're currently you've got a role as a therapy mentor. So you're supporting many new graduates, but other people across the organisation. So we've talked about that tonight in terms of what that looks like for people. So I want to jump to something else that you've done, which has been pretty exciting. You took purpose leave, which is an opportunity for people to have a break in their working life, to go off and do something really different and ignite passions in another way. Can you tell us, just, I'm going to have to get you to be quick about it, but tell us about what you did, because it's benefited you yourself, but your participants and the people you support, as in other clinicians as well.
Absolutely. So I took my purpose leave, thought I need a bit more of a challenge. I want to upskill and be the best therapist I can, and I'd always wanted to work in the Northern Territory. I ended up moving away for an 11-month contract to work at a hospital in Darwin. While I was there, I upskilled in the acute space, a lot of dysphagia management. Needed to fill a gap, so I also upskilled in paediatric feeding, so working in the special care nursery, in the NICU. It was an incredible opportunity for capacity building when people, babies, adults were going back out remote into communities where they won't get services for a couple of months, and they may not see speech pathologists, OTs, allied health practitioners for months. So being able to really hone in on those capacity building skills to bring some social model to the medical model, to be able to encourage doctors and other allied health team members, what is important to the patient? Have you asked them? So being able to take our influence to them and being able to upskill, again, wanting to be the best therapist I can for my mentees, for my participants, upskilling and bringing those back for my participants and my team.
Yeah, it's such a win-win, isn't it? And I love that. And thank you so much for showcasing that, because I know that I go on about this a lot, but being a future fit practitioner is about learning contemporary evidence-based practice. That is the everyday way. And then you can go and apply it to so many other settings that only is so powerful in giving people the enablement and carriage of their own lives. So I just love that you were able to do that, to benefit that community, but to then come a full circle and come back. So thank you so much for sharing that with us tonight. Again, if people are going to take home a key message from that, is that, train in contemporary based practice. We want you to be in your profession for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And that's what a start at Everyday Independence will give you, as it's most certainly given Charlotte and Joe. You guys are the future, and I thank you so much for investing your time and effort in what you do for us every day. So we're going to wrap up in a minute, guys. We're a little bit at time, but just bear with me for the last few slides, because it's really going to help you understand what could a career look like at Everyday Independence for not only you as a clinician, but you as a person. So look, you can find all of this on our website, but we've got, you can't be a clinician like Joe and Charlotte unless you are mentally fit, mentally well. You can't learn unless your well-being is at the front of what you do. So It's all about flexibility, well-being and growth. And we've got very specific programs that will support you in your new graduate year. And these sit firmly alongside our clinical learning programs. So all of it, you know, whole person experience when it comes to participants, whole person experience when it comes to employees. Let's keep going, Pri. So again, more to come on this, but we want to share the remuneration with our practitioners. So we've put together a new way in which we will remunerate our practitioners, and also given you some choice and control over what your remuneration package will look like. So you can discuss that with any one of our talent acquisition specialists, of which I am also on that team as well for part of my week. And we really want to support you to create a package that works for you. So too much information here, but ongoing permanent contract. We want to have continuity of care for our participants, for which you will be remunerated for. We want to really encourage you to work in a high performance culture, in a culture that is balanced, that is strong, that looks after each other. So all of that fits into our new remuneration package. So not only will you experience being in a great team, we also want you to be a great team members to enhance the experience of our other employees as well. So that can certainly be all discussed in the context of remuneration. In our next slide, again, we do labour this point. It's super important. It is all about wellbeing and inclusion. So across our year, Monday to December, we have a different focus every month on wellbeing and inclusion. So this month is actually all about taking the time to breathe. So there's a lot of mindfulness happening this month. And then next month, we're really starting to look at physical health. So huge amount of our team members are going to be doing September, for example, but lots of activities across the month that enhance self-awareness, well-being, and your ability to turn up to work and be the best that you can be for not just your participants, but for your whole of life. Hub Life, we mentioned that in the dial before. Hub Life is probably one of the things that I'm most proud of at Everyday Independence. Everybody at Everyday Independence works a Wednesday. We go to the hub to connect, for team learning, for therapy planning, for professional development. And then we also have all other 4 days of the week, people coming in and out of the hub. You will see a number of dogs feature, so there are certainly dog-friendly hubs as well. But that social connection, that connection with your team members is just really important to workplace satisfaction. But it's actually more than that. It's really important to your mental health and well-being and your ability to learn in your graduate year. So you put in the effort to connect, others will connect with you, and you will have a really incredible, capable environment around you to support you to be able to thrive. As I mentioned, I've worked here for 12 years and I have got so many friends and colleagues and peers at all different levels of this organisation. Everybody is genuinely beautiful as a human in our organisation. People do this job because they really want to make a difference. And that is just so evident in our culture. So if you like beautiful humans, get involved in Hub Life, because it's the only way is certainly up. Let's keep going. We do want to mention our Habit Coach program tonight. That is our Allied Health Assistant program, but it's more than that. It's about building habits and skills and routines. It is a great platform for you to learn about a social model before you have graduated, or sometimes people do it as an internship whilst they're waiting on their ARPA registration when they have graduated. Jump on our YouTube channel. I think our Habit Coach YouTube video explains it really, really well. And you'll be able to see more about that. But the Habit Coach program is industry leading. It is absolutely where we will see our allied health network go. So learning to work with a habit coach is just going to be another really important skill to add to your toolbox as you work in your new graduate year. And the remarkable thing about habit coaches is our participants get to their outcomes quicker because they are practicing their routines and their habits all of the time. And the evidence tells us therapy happens between therapy sessions, not just during therapy sessions. Really core part of social model. You would have heard Charlotte talking about capacity building. So the Habit Coach program is just really great if you could be a part of it, and you can register your interest with us about that. But it's not needed either way. If you joined us as a graduate or at any stage in your career, you will be specifically taught how to work with habit coaches, but such an important part of our team and really growing. So we are nearly at time, and thank you everyone for staying with us. Really appreciate it. If you want to find out more about working with me, Joe, Charlotte, we've also got Esther and Priyanka on the screen, but as I said, a really great organization. We are big. We're up around the 800, 900 mark, but we mitigate that feeling of big by having smaller hubs. So you get all of the advantages of having a big scalable organization in terms of our learning and development. You know, we've got learning and development platforms, we've got ETM that we mentioned before, so the digital drop-ins. We're starting to do a project with artificial intelligence. So, you know, it's really going to be very transformative what allied health looks like in the next 10 years. So we've got all of those benefits, but then hub life is really important to your sense of being and belonging. So if you want to find out more, you can actually book in with me and have a chat just on a Teams like this. Esther's going to put in some invites, and I would, you know, as I said, the only silly question is the question you don't ask. The other thing that you can do is we've got other events coming up like this. So we've got another graduate career event. People spoke about Sally Smith tonight, who's our career coach. She's going to be joining us in October the 24th. And we have another clinical careers pathway event. So that's for all practitioners, experienced and graduate, coming up in November. So, you know, there's lots of different ways to apply. We will also put that in the chat, but the best way to apply is just give us an email, which is careers@everydayind.com.au, or you can actually go through our website. Website has a wealth of information. We're very proud of the contemporary information that is on there. So any way that you want to find out more about Everyday Independence, we want you to join us if you're a good fit for our teams. We have wait lists. So many people with a disability, communities, service users want social model. And they want social model that gets outcomes and impact, and that's at Everyday Independence. So we have lots of work. So we're always looking for people to join our organisation as we grow. So this is all the information on the screen if you want to find out more, but would certainly love to hear from you. So for those, lots of people stayed with us, which is really, really exciting. That's great. We are going to open it up for questions. As I mentioned, we have Joe here, OT, myself, physio, and Charlotte, speech pathologist. And yes, if there's any questions, please just pop your hand up, shout out, whatever you would like to ask.